The Plank. Presented by Jeep continues right now on ABC Action News Now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back inside The Plank here on ABCActionNews.com. John Sabol alongside Greg Auman, our special guest host, filling in for our Tom Korn. We want to hear from you guys, the fans, talking about this big Buccaneers-Steelers game coming up on Sunday. I'm going to lay it out for you here, 813-367-0171. Call us there. Also, reach at us at Twitter, at Greg's Twitter handle, at Greg Auman, at John_Sabol. And then you can ask us any questions on Twitter using the hashtag #ThePlank. And real quick, we do have one question coming here from Leaf at Smitty Look Away. That's his Twitter handle. And he asks Greg, how concerned should he be about Vincent Jackson's wrist injury? Remember, he has a hairline fracture.
Yeah, when news came out that he had hurt his hand, hurt his wrist, his right wrist, during the Falcons game, a lot of people concerned. He really has looked fine in practice. They listed him at full participation. We talked to him today, and he said he expects to be able to play at kind of full capacity on Sunday. They have a brace that he can use if he needs to. He's not sure right now. I think it can kind of limit the range of motion on his hand when he's wearing it, but he'll be playing. He should be healthy. I guess we won't know until the game in terms of whether it impacts how effective he can be down the field, but he'll be there and he'll give it a go on Sunday.
Now, we posed a question to you before we went to the break. How confident are you guys, the fans, in Marcus Arroyo's play calling duties since the absence of offensive coordinator Jeff Tedford, still recovering from heart surgery? He has taken a medical leave, may not return the rest of the season. We'll wait to see. But we want to hear your questions and your concerns and your views on this Buccaneers season. 813-367-0171. Jeff Tedford is gone for now. Marcus Arroyo and Lovie Smith both talked to the media, talked to us earlier this week, both addressing the issues of the confidence. And we have a soundbite from both of those guys talking about if Lovie Smith is at all worried about not having Jeff Tedford and how confident Marcus Arroyo is of continuing using those play calling duties.
No concern at all. Again, we've been doing this for a month also. So if there were some little things we need to tweak, we've done that already. Nothing has changed. I mean, it's a story to you, but for our football team, they're moving on. So no one is going to have to take on additional duties from what we did early in the year.
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable calling the plays. I don't think there's been an opportunity yet where I felt really uncomfortable. Fortunately, if that presents itself at another time, it's yet to be determined. But so far, I've been comfortable doing that.
Oh, the question, Greg, are you comfortable?
I think the questions are still going to stick around for Lovie Smith and for Marcus Arroyo until the offense starts clicking a little bit better, especially with the passing game. There's been a lot of things that can throw an offense off, whether it be Jeff Tedford, is he there, is he not there, injuries on the offensive line, injuries at running back. So I think just finding some stability, knowing that Jeff Tedford is not coming back right now, knowing that Marcus Arroyo is going to be the guy making the calls, I think that presents itself as helping from a continuity standpoint. Some of the personnel he'll get back in terms of Doug Martin at running back, in terms of Austin Seferian-Jenkins at tight end. That'll help a lot as well. The injuries, as we mentioned in the last segment of the Steelers defense, that's another thing that'll help Marcus Arroyo. They're getting used to things. He's getting used to the rhythm of an NFL game, how NFL defenses are working. Every week's going to make it a little easier for him. It's got to get better than it was for the first three quarters on Thursday last week.
And then now he has a wrinkle into his play calling duties and another challenge with Mike Glennon taking over. And we have a caller on the line. Phil from Tampa has a question, Greg, regarding Mike Glennon. Hi, Phil.
Hey, yes. Okay. Hey, I actually had two questions.
Okay.
One was going to be about the quarterback and how the offense is going to kind of change. And the other is I'm a special teams guy, and I was, from watching the game last Thursday, I know we picked up a snapper, I believe Jeremy Kane, but I didn't see him snapping on Thursday. I was wondering, actually, I didn't see him snapping when I went to the Rams game the other week, and was wondering why he had gotten cut. And also want to talk to him about the blocking abilities of the current long snapper. I thought I saw him got beat on one of the punts, and people overlook that position, but a blocked punt, I don't know the exact number, but if you block a punt, you're 80% guaranteed to win. So can we talk about the special teams some?
Yeah, special teams have definitely been a concern here. And as for the long snapper, actually Jeremy Kane got cut by the Bucs in preseason. Jeremy's a guy who's been in the league for a decade, had been with Lovie Smith when Lovie first started with the Bears. They made the decision before the season to go with a guy named Andrew DePaula, who's been in camp with the Bucs the last 2 years. certainly less proven than Jeremy Kane, but they felt like he beat him out before the season, and I haven't seen a problem with the long snap so far. They did have a blocked punt, and they've had blocked kicks, but I think it's been penetration from outside. I don't think it's really been a snapping issue. Jeremy Kane actually landed with the Chicago Bears. He's back with them, and he's their long snapper now. Back to your first question about Mike Glennon, it definitely will be a change, and it'll be something, like you mentioned, another wrinkle for Marcus Arroyo. You know, Glennon has been around this team, has been taking reps and preparing as if he were the starter. He's got a lot more reps now. When you think about the Falcons game, he kind of comes in on the fly, not expecting to be in just before halftime and having to just kind of wing it. Now he's had a full week where he's gotten the starter's share of reps in practice. I think he'll be a lot more ready as a result. And obviously we'll get a better look at how he handles this offense on Sunday.
Great questions, Phil. Thanks for the call, man. All right, we have a couple tweets coming in here, Greg, as we continue here.
Sure.
Emery Wyckoff asking, is Gerald McCoy close to signing an extension? Remember, this has been a topic that was kind of diffused a little bit during training camp, but what does your insight tell you on that?
Yeah, you know, Gerald McCoy and Ndamukong Suh, the Lions defensive tackle, both came in the same year. They're both entering contract years, and obviously they made it a major priority to keep Gerald McCoy with this team moving forward, kind of keeping him as the face of this team and a franchise player at defensive tackle. The talk is just that the talks have progressed. It's a tricky economic thing with Suh and with McCoy because they were the last year of the big signing bonuses for rookies. So they made a lot more money on their rookie deals than any of the rookie classes since then. And every time there's a new signing on defense, whether it's a J.J. Watt or some of the other elite players, it kind of resets the value for how much a top-tier defensive tackle will be. It looks like Gerald McCoy is more likely to be signing and re-signing with his team than Ndamukong Suh is with Detroit right now. It's just a matter of when they can find a number that works for both sides. Is it $14 million a year? Is it $15 million a year? How much of that is guaranteed? I think there's a full intention on both sides to have him continue his playing career here with the Bucs. But right now there's nothing real pressing in terms of a deal coming through in the next few days or weeks.
I would only assume that this won't happen until maybe after the season.
It could happen in season. You see these players are making deals right now. They have the room under the cap to make a deal. I think McCoy counts about $15 million to the cap this year. They could even lessen that number with a long-term deal. So it's not an issue of having it done their season. He's more worried about his health. He's more worried about getting the team its first win than he is locking up a long-term contract.
Well, Gerald's such a classy guy, a leader. I don't see him going anywhere.
No, obviously you worry for Bucs fans just because he hasn't been part of a playoff team. But I think he's very committed to this team, very committed to being a guy that will help get Tampa back to the playoffs. And whatever that is, I think it's something that will be a priority on both sides to get it worked out.
We have another tweet from Wise Guy. Greg, he says, with all the injuries, do the personnel require different schemes? No McCoy, no pressure. Tampa, too. Obviously, a lot of injuries. Do they change the way they go about trying to stopping the run, stopping the pass with the Steelers, what he is indicating in that tweet?
There's a lot of injuries on both sides. So, I mean, how the players can step up in place of the injured players will change things a lot. We don't know how effective the middle of the defense will be for the Pittsburgh Steelers, losing two young linebackers in Jarvis Jones and in Ryan Shazier. And for the Bucs, we still don't know who will be there for him, whether Michael Johnson is there. You know, the guy that started in Michael Johnson's place last week is Larry English. He was down with a hamstring injury there. So I think there's still a lot of questions to know exactly who will be there and how effective they'll be on Sunday at a bunch of positions on defense on both sides.
Oh, great questions by Phil, the caller, in the last few tweets here. And now, it's that point now where you have a couple hours or maybe a couple minutes left, really, to set your fantasy rosters for the Thursday night game. And we have our Matt Mcguire, who is standing by with the very latest on what you should be doing this week, because there's a lot of bye weeks, and there's been a lot of injuries last week. And Matt will tell you who to sit, who to possibly start, and who to pick up coming up here in Week 4.
Hello everyone and welcome to Week 4. It's the first time this season where we've got some teams on bye week, so you may need to make some changes to your roster. I'll talk about 3 guys you might want to add to help you get through some of these bye weeks. We'll also talk about some of the injuries last week. There weren't a whole lot of significant ones, but there are a few that have some fantasy impact. And lastly, we'll talk about the Bucs. Boy, was that an ugly game Thursday night. Not a whole lot to talk about there, but we'll see what they're going to do going forward. Now let's start with the injuries. There weren't a whole lot of significant injuries last week, but there are a few that will have some fantasy impact. The first one is the Carolina Panthers running backs. They lost Mike Tolbert and Jonathan Stewart last week, and D'Angelo Williams didn't play due to injury. Now Williams is supposed to be back for Week 4, but I'm not really crazy about him. He's only had 8 touchdowns in his last 32 games, and the Panthers brought up a rookie from their practice squad. His name is Darren Reeves. Now, Reeves hasn't played yet in the NFL, but sometimes all it takes is an opportunity. So let's keep an eye on D'Angelo Williams and Reeves and see who becomes more productive here in Week 4. The next player I want to talk about isn't necessarily a player, but a unit. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They had 3 key injuries on Sunday night, and any team, no matter how good the defense, has a hard time dealing with that many injuries that quick. Luckily for the Steelers, they've got the Bucs coming in next week, so we'll see if that really impacts them from a fantasy football perspective. But if you do have the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, you want to keep an eye on the replacements for those injured players. And the last injury I want to talk about is with the Bucs, Josh McCown. Now, he hurt his hand last week, and a lot of the fans got what they wanted. Mike Glennon came into the game, and he looked pretty good for a little bit. Now, granted, it was against the Falcons' second-string defense because the game was so far out of question, but we'll see how Mike Glennon does with a full week of practice under his belt as a starting quarterback. And we'll also look at Vincent Jackson with the Bucs. Now, they're downplaying this injury, saying the cracked wrist isn't that big of a deal. They're going to put a brace on it. I don't know how effective that's going to be. He pushes off a lot on the line of scrimmage to get out into his routes, and that's going to cause some pain in that wrist. And when you talk about a wide receiver trying to catch the ball, obviously they rely heavily on their hands. So I'm staying away from Vincent Jackson this week. In fact, I'm pretty much staying away from everyone on the entire Bucs offense. Doug Martin's back, but we'll see how he does behind this offensive line. Maybe the only guy to take a look at is Mike Evans. The rookie's really starting to show some promise, and if Glennon can get the ball to him, he can start to put up some big numbers. Now let's talk about 3 players you might want to add to your team. The first one is Allen Robinson. He's a rookie wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know a few weeks ago I said stay away from Jacksonville, but they made a change at quarterback. They brought in their rookie Blake Bortles, and what I like about that is we all know Jacksonville's offensive line is pretty much still a block of Swiss cheese with wearing a football helmet. But Bortles has the ability to move around in the pocket and a strong enough arm to still get the ball downfield to some wide receivers. In the past, the Jacksonville quarterbacks have pretty much had to just throw the ball out of bounds or dump it off to a running back or tight end once they got some pressure. Bortles isn't like that. I look for him to continue to build on his relationship with Robinson and put up some big numbers. When Bortles came into the game last week, Robinson had 6 catches for 73 yards. I think that will continue as the two get more time playing together. The next player you want to add is Marvin Jones. He's a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals are on bye this week, so he won't help you in Week 4. But in Week 5, he's supposed to make his season debut. He got hurt in the preseason, but he had a big year last year in limited time. He had over 50 catches and 700 yards with 10 touchdowns. The Bengals are playing great football right now, and the addition of Marvin Jones will only add to that. And the last guy to talk about is Niles Paul. He's a tight end for the Washington Redskins. This season, it seems like pass-catching tight ends are growing on trees in the NFL. And unfortunately for a guy like me who drafted Jimmy Graham 10th overall in his league, there's a lot of depth at tight end. Niles Paul is just another tight end that you can look to add to your fantasy team. He's got 18 catches for 253 yards and a touchdown so far this season. Look for those numbers to continue to go up as he gets more and more playing time. That's all I've got this week. I'm Matt Mcguire. Thanks for watching, and remember, #ThePlank on Twitter if you have any questions.